Is it possible to take all of the world's most hated tropes and combine them into a single book without that book turning into a total disaster? That's the question I was forced to face when I made this writing challenge video a few months ago, taking all of your favorite, most loved fiction tropes and combining them into the perfect novel. And sure, this process seems like success is probably guaranteed when you're working with the highest quality, most loved story ingredients. But what would happen if we were forced to work with the worst ingredients? The cringeworthy cliches, the skin-crawling stereotypes. Everything you hate in a book. Sounds like an impossible mission, but I'm all for taking on the impossible.
Good morning, Miss Emmons. The pages you're looking at contain the most hated fiction tropes according to readers all over the world. Whether they are plot devices, character traits, or fictional settings, many readers agree that these are by far the most contemptible ingredients to find in a book. They are quite simply cringeworthy stereotypes that readers everywhere are tired of seeing. Your mission, Abby, should you choose to accept it, is to take these ingredients and combine them to create a book that is actually worth reading. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, Abby.
In order to fulfill my mission, I couldn't just comb the internet for the worst fiction tropes of all time and combine them into one chaotic recipe for disaster. I had to refine the worst of the worst tropes. So once again, I took to Instagram and Discord and ran polls facing off bad tropes against each other to compile the list of story ingredients that we are going to work with. First poll that we started this challenge with is the female character tropes. The most annoying type of bad female character is the pretty mean cheerleader. I can understand why. The pretty mean cheerleader is quite a cliche stereotype, and I think we're kind of all tired of seeing it because usually the pretty mean cheerleader is kind of the bully or antagonistic character towards our protagonist.
Look what we have! The perfect nerd couple, Jeremiah and Mia. Oh, Maya and Mia.
So we're gonna find a way to subvert that cliche. The most annoying type of good girl character is not like other girls protagonist. With good reason. I think we're all tired of hearing that phrase. And it's worth noting that every single one of these polls that I ran on Instagram, the same results won on Discord. Act like a damsel in distress barely wins over doesn't realize she's pretty. So you guys don't like either one of those things, but acts like a damsel in distress technically wins. I'm tired of seeing girls who are struggling with getting over a breakup. We're gonna find a way to twist it, make it original. And I'm tired of seeing a female main character whose greatest strength is aggressive. And close second was stubborn. Aggressive characters in general, they don't vibe well with me unless there's a real good reason for them to be aggressive.
You, Star Force lady, you're under arrest.
So her strength is aggressive. Stubborn we'll put down as a close second. And finally, I'm turned off by a female main character whose greatest weakness is self-deprecating. Now, let's move on to our male protagonist. The most annoying type of bad male character is the mafia gang leader love interest. And I guess it's kind of like the rule-breaking bad boy in a way, which got second. The most annoying type of good male character is the impossibly hot quarterback. Wow, 50% of the vote. Okay, interesting. I hate when he treats the girl like dirt. That is 73% of the vote. That one takes the cake, I think, for everybody. Almost everybody cannot stand it when the main guy character treats the girl like dirt. And then she loves him anyway. It's like, oh, please no.
He inspires an anger in me I did not know I possessed. And yet, I find that his good opinion means more to me than anybody else's. How can that be?
I'm tired of seeing the guy who is struggling with climbing the corporate ladder and winning a championship, almost tied with each other, but winning a sport or game won in Discord. And because it was so close of a tie here on Instagram, I'm gonna say that winning a sport or game is the winner. Which kind of fits, because if he's actually gonna be an impossibly hot quarterback, then he's obviously into football. Okay, I'm turned off by a main male character whose strength is protective and charming. Wow, guys. Okay, this is pretty close, but protective 1, that's kind of a good strength. I guess it could get like kind of annoying if he was like borderline possessive of like,
what are you doing? Who are you seeing? Who are you talking to?
He doesn't ever let her have any space. I'm turned off by a male main character whose weakness is jealous, and then a close second was dishonest. We'll say jealous and dishonest. So there's our main male character. I am not sure yet how he's going to be a mafia gang leader, love interest, and an impossibly hot quarterback, but we can do it. Romance ingredients. Choose the romance trope you can't stand. And the winner here is AI relationship with 56% of the vote. I honestly haven't seen this done a lot, so I'm not sure how overused it is, but it's definitely not my favorite genre. Choose the cringiest toxic love trope. 38% of the vote goes to stalker love interest, so this is shaping up to be scary. The worst opposites attract trope is teacher-student has by far the most hate with 64% of the vote. I understand why, because I think this like immediately conjures images of like the creepy old male teacher who's like kind of being predatory towards a female student who's a lot younger than him. But that doesn't have to always be the scenario, right? I mean, teachers and students could be the same age depending on what they're teaching and what the student is learning. Forced proximity annoys me when it's fated mates got 35% of the vote. And I agree. When somebody is like, oh, this is my soulmate, I'm meant to be with them, it is fate that we end up together, it kind of takes the stakes out of it. The one popular trope I dislike the most is love at first sight and love triangle are so close, but love at first sight won. It won this vote, but then in Discord, love triangle won. So again, I'm going to say Discord topples the vote. I actually like love triangles if they're done right. I understand that they can be so cliche and annoying when it's like just the flat, boring Mary Sue character who is trying to choose between two guys. One is nice to her, one is mean to her. And of course she's gonna choose the guy who's mean to her because meanness is always perceived as like being hotter for some reason.
Edward?
If you ever touch her against her will again!
Don't do this!
She's not sure what she wants.
Don't do this!
But I think love triangles can have a good twist put on them that make them interesting. That's what I tried to do in my latest book, The Other World. And I love it because it's not your average love triangle. And you'll have to go read the book to see what I'm talking about there. Worst conflict in a romance is cheating or miscommunication. I mean, I think there are certain scenarios where miscommunication can be done well, but cheating won. And finally, plot devices. I'm tired of plots that center around the chosen one wins. 47% of the vote. And again, this is kind of like fated mates, where you're taking some of the stakes out of it because you know that this character is just destined to do something, so they're flung into the unknown and sometimes against their will, but they aren't really making an active decision, so that can lead to making your characters too passive, and I think that's what people dislike about the chosen one. But we're gonna find a way to twist this cliche. Choose the plot twist that you hate the most. It was all a dream wins with 65% of the vote. I agree, again, taking the stakes out of it. It's like nothing really happened. Why were we here to see it? This one's gonna be hard to incorporate. I'm sick of stories that take place in high school wins, which is perfect because we have a pretty mean cheerleader, we have the impossibly hot quarterback. They belong in high school, right? Finally, last poll. I'm done with this character cliche. Mentor who dies to motivate the hero. That one is a bit tired. Boom. We have all our ingredients here now to start putting together our story. Yeah, some of them don't look like they belong together, but we're going to find a way to make this work. And to do this, I'm going to use my favorite brainstorming method, the method that I used last time in the other writing challenge video, which is first to figure out the who, the what, and the why, aka the characters, the plot, and the theme. Before we get into the next part of this video and start combining these ingredients into an actual story, I want to pause for a second real quick here to tell you guys about this really fun printable that I created for today's video to help you to take cliches and stereotypes and things that you think are overdone and overused and actually put your own unique twist on them and make them your own. Make them something unexpected that nobody has ever seen. So this is my official brainstorming guide to twist tropes and cliches into something unique. And you can grab this guide by clicking the link below this video right now. Download it, print it off, and fill it out and see what you come up with. Because here's the thing. We can take cliches and things that are stereotypical and overused perhaps and turn them into something unique that nobody has seen like this before. It's all a matter of creativity and asking yourself the right questions. So that's why I designed this printable, to help you ask yourself the right questions so that you're not disheartened next time you see somebody complain about a trope that they don't personally like, that they think is overused. If any of those answers to the polls are ingredients that are in your book, take heart, because you can actually twist these tropes and make these cliches into something really unique. First step to do that is to grab the printable below this video. The link is in the description. Okay, without further ado, let's dive back into the computer and figure out what we can do with these ingredients to turn them into a unique story. Okay, let's figure out the who, the what, the why of this story. We're going to start with the characters because that's my favorite place to start. Okay, so we have to work with the pretty mean cheerleader who's not like other girls, acts like a damsel in distress, getting over a breakup, and her strength is aggressive, and she's stubborn, and her weakness is that she's self-deprecating. So I think the reason why a lot of people don't like the pretty mean cheerleader is because she's usually the antagonist of the story. She's usually a side character. She's usually aggressing upon our lovable main girl character. The first way we're gonna subvert this expectation is to make her the main character. That forces us to then ask ourselves, okay, what turned her into the pretty mean cheerleader? What is at the root of this character's conflict? What has turned them into the person they are today? Because see, the misbehavior is on the surface. The misbelief is below the surface, and the misbelief contributes to the misbehavior. Maybe she's forced into this. Maybe she is living a life that she doesn't even want to live because of her internal conflict. So Vivian, the pretty mean cheerleader, didn't just stumble into the role. Her domineering mother, who is part of her private school's alumni, molded her into the perfect pom-pom wielding celebrity she is today. All because her mother has the unfulfilled desire to be the star of the show. Vivi believes she must earn her mother's love by continuing her legacy and being perfect, so she continues living out this false identity. At school, Vivi feels like she is a fraud. She secretly loathes the spotlight and is surrounded by so-called friends who don't genuinely care about her, only care to impress her. This internal turmoil forces her to put up walls, making her come off as cold, distant, or mean. But really, she's just a girl under pressure, worn down from working so hard to live someone else's dream. I like that. I can see some good misunderstandings there, where on the surface we have this character's misbehavior showing that she is cold and distant and mean, but beneath the surface, she's actually struggling. And that's what really makes us care about characters, especially unlikable characters. Yes, you can care about unlikable characters, but we have to see their weaknesses. We have to see their fatal flaws. And we have to, I think, also see an element of compassion. Like, there's some outlet that this character has that they show compassion somewhere. So we know that they are just as human as we are. What is Vivi's outlet of compassion? She has this problem with her mother trying to like vicariously live through her and hold her to this expectation of perfection. Of course, her strength is that she's kind of aggressive and she's stubborn, but we're gonna see a softer side of her, and that's gonna be where she's not like other girls. Her compassion outlet, which is going to be that she has a really good relationship with her grandmother. So she loves spending time with her grandmother and feels like that's where she can really take off the mask, is at her grandma's house, and kind of just be her authentic self and be loved unconditionally, not for anything she does, but just because of who she is. Because her grandmother is just a really sweet, loving, giving person, and Vivi actually is too, deep down. But that's not the facade that she has to keep up at school. So that's like something that she never lets anybody else see. She can enjoy like doing granny activities like baking and crocheting and watching period dramas with her grandmother. And that makes her not like the other girls. Now let's move on to the main male character. We have quite a interesting list of ingredients here. So he has to be a mafia gang leader, but he also has to be the impossibly hot quarterback and treat the girl like dirt. And he's obsessed with winning this sport. Okay. I feel like all of these things work together. The only thing is that he sounds like a totally unlikable person. Blake, Vivi's hot quarterback boyfriend, secretly comes from a mafia family. After his dad's recent death, Blake is named the chosen one, who will take over as the boss one day. But Blake dreams of a different life, playing college football and carving out his own path in life. His future hinges on his success in the sport. Otherwise, he'll be sucked back into the shadows of his family's criminal world. As for Vivi, he doesn't really love her, but she's beautiful and popular and perfect in every way. She completes the whole image he needs to maintain because he's secretly terrified that the kids at school will find out about his mafia connections. So it's a relationship of convenience for both of them. But under the surface, Vivi and Blake both feel inauthentic and inadequate. So they kind of share similar conflict here. He wants to lead his own life, but he's kind of trapped in this. And because of that, he's dishonest, right? He's like living this double life. But I think that kind of subverts the expectation of the cheerleader and the quarterback being a couple, because that's like very cliche. So what if they were a couple, but they didn't even love each other? And they both kind of know it. Like, he's still gonna be protective and possessive and jealous. But she knows he doesn't really love her. And he knows she doesn't really love him. Also, Vivi's mother wants her to be with Blake because he's like this rich kid who comes from what she thinks is a good family, good background, and he just kind of fits the whole perfect image. So all that works together, because then that makes them kind of fated mates, doesn't it? If it's like totally out of their hands. Blake wants it, but Vivi's mother also wants it. I still have to figure out why Vivi is getting over a breakup. We're gonna return to that. And there has to be a love triangle. So there's gonna be a second guy character. But before we figure out the second guy character, let's figure out the what. The basic premise. What could happen to bring Vivi and Blake sort of into a new conflict with a second guy who completes the love triangle. So just looking at our ingredients list and trying to find some plot material, we have a stalker love interest, a teacher-student scenario. I don't want it to be an actual teacher. I want it to be more of like a tutoring scenario because that way we can involve a second guy character who is Vivi's age, but is also teaching her something. Vivian seems to have it all. She's the queen bee cheerleader with the ridiculously hot quarterback boyfriend and an entourage of popular kids echoing her every word. Her life looks flawless from the outside, but behind the scenes, she's just playing a role to win her mother's approval and love. Struggling to make sense of her life after her parents' sudden split, Vivi's world gets shaken up even more when she finds out she's flunking chemistry. Enter Rue, her brilliant but socially awkward classmate. He's her only hope for passing the class and the only person who doesn't treat her like royalty. At first, they clash over tutoring sessions, but before long, Vivi and Rue start to see beyond their stereotypes and discover each other's true selves. When romantic sparks begin to fly, Vivi faces bigger problems: her jealous, possessive boyfriend, who's secretly involved in a dangerous mafia, and her controlling mother, who won't take kindly to her breaking the mold. Can Vivi throw away her picture-perfect facade and embrace the person she feels she was always meant to be? It's a simple premise. I know, it's really not a lot going on. We have 3 characters. We have this tutoring scenario. We are also kind of putting a twist on the love triangle because Vivi is going into this not really seeing Rue as a love interest And honestly, not even seeing Blake as her true love interest either. Of course, Vivi and Rue should end up together because they'll be better together. Let's just flesh out his character real quick too. The brilliant, nerdy academic who is about to shake up Vivi's world. He's a scholarship kid and a nobody in the eyes of the cool crowd, but Rue doesn't care for social status or football games. He's more into deep philosophical conversations and spends most of his time developing an AI software that will help senior citizens because his closest friends are the seniors in his neighborhood, including Vivi's grandmother, whom he helps out with errands and yard work. Rue would typically never enter Vivi's orbit, but he's her only hope when she's on the brink of failing chemistry. As they clash and connect, Rue's kindness and depth become a lifeline for Vivi, igniting a spark that challenges everything she thinks she wants. Boom. We tied the internal conflict of both characters into this now. I like this. I know Rue is a little bit of a stereotype, but he's gonna break the cliche molds as well. And I found a little bit of a twist to put on the AI relationship. So it's not quite an AI relationship where like you think the AI is actually in love with you. That's not his relationship with AI. He's trying to develop an AI software that will help senior citizens to sort of tell their life story. Let's figure out the why. Basing it off of what we've looked at so far with the characters' misbeliefs, the themes will end up being something like this. Trying to please everyone will rob you of becoming the uniquely beautiful person you were born to be. We have to live our own dreams, not someone else's. People aren't always what they seem from the outside. And I think bottom line, the biggest theme is that real love is unconditional. I want to take this one step further and show you guys how I would go about outlining this story with the 3-act story structure. We're not going to go super deep into it, but we're going to look at how we could turn this into a coherent outline for a full-length book. Okay, so the outlining structure I'm going to use here is my basic 3-act story structure template, which I made a whole in-depth series on here if you want to check it out if you are unfamiliar with the 3-act story structure as I teach it, which is character driven. So we have the most important ingredients, which is the basic premise, the characters, their internal conflict, and the themes that we want to kind of interweave with all of this. Okay, so our hook is basically our main character's internal conflict. Queen bee cheerleader Vivi seems to be living the dream. She has the hot quarterback boyfriend, loyal followers, the spotlight always on her, but behind the scenes she is tormented by the pressure to be perfect, a role forced on her by her domineering mother who lives vicariously through Vivi. Her world is shaky from her parents' recent split, and now she feels like an imposter surrounded by fake friends. She envies the other girls, and the only place she feels like she can be her true self is with her grandmother, who loves her unconditionally for who she is deep down. So we're hitting on a few of the cliches here with the breakup. I'm making it that she's not actually dealing with a breakup of her own. She's dealing with the separation of her parents and her dad leaving. So that kind of disrupts her whole world to begin with. It's time to shove her outside her comfort zone with the inciting incident. We know the inciting incident is going to be that she discovers she's on the brink of failing chemistry. This is a disaster that her overbearing mother can never find out about because, of course, this would mean losing her mother's approval, right? If she began to fall out of this perfect facade of who she's trying to be for her mother's sake. So Rue says that he needs the extra money to tutor her, and of course Vivi needs to get her grades up before her mom finds out she's failing. So it seems like a win-win scenario, but Vivi's like the aloof cool girl, and she's not gonna really enjoy this arrangement. And neither will Rue, because Rue is the only person who doesn't treat her like a princess. So this could create kind of a nice, juicy little hate to love romance. So Vivi reluctantly agrees to be tutored by Rue or fail her class. Pain versus pain. She can't stand Rue's relentless sunny sarcasm, and he can't stand her snobby cold shoulder, but they both have something to gain by working together. I can see them kind of being like the grumpy sunshine duo. So the first pinch point, I have not really delved at all into Blake's character. So I think this would be a good opportunity to introduce some conflict with Blake. He's gonna be there, but we don't really know a ton about him. He's kind of mysterious at this point. Okay, so Vivi's boyfriend Blake is okay with this arrangement because he doesn't really see Rue as a threat. He's like, she would never be interested in him. But Vivi is annoyed by Blake's fake charisma, how he treats her like gold in public, but in private he barely acknowledges her, and she thinks he just wants a trophy girlfriend. Really, Blake is struggling to cover up his ties to his mafia family. They want him to step into his late father's role as the next boss, but Blake dreams of escaping that world and playing college football. He's not just the superficial hot quarterback. He's potentially a threat to Vivi's happiness. Okay, so now we come into Act 2, which is the pre-midpoint reactionary hero. We have Vivi and Rue are working together. That kind of is going to be the thing that kicks off the trajectory of the next part of this book. So reluctant allies in a time of crisis, Vivi and Rue are forced to work together and overcome their differences with snarky banter. Rue has never been to a football game or seen Vivi cheer, which she's shocked to discover, but he says that he has better things to do with his time, and she's kind of skeptical about that. But she soon discovers that he has a secret life of volunteering for seniors in the neighborhood, including Vivi's own grandmother. So he actually already knows Vivi's grandmother. Maybe she tries to like set them up together. So maybe that's the game-changing midpoint for them to depart from their stereotypes and their narrow opinions of each other. That's part of the theme, is like people aren't what they seem from the outside. So she thinks she knows exactly what Rue is from the outside.
You know, he's like this quiet nerd who doesn't have a social life. He doesn't have any friends. He, you know, is just like stuck in his AI programming all the time.
And so that's kind of like her stereotype of him, and then his stereotype of her is like, you know,
She's just kind of this silicone, pretty mean cheerleader who's aloof all the time, has the hot quarterback boyfriend.
he has to come to the realization that she's more than that. Maybe the tipping point for them is that they reach a point where they see the real versions of each other. And that can come through Vivi's grandmother. So literally a game-changing midpoint can be this simple. Vivi and Rue's relationship reaches a midpoint when they unexpectedly meet one day at Grandma's house. Vivi's grandma eagerly introduces her to Rue, not knowing that they already have a complicated history together. Vivi realizes that Rue has hidden depths and actually has a lot of friends among the seniors of the neighborhood, and Rue sees that she's a more authentic and sweet person outside the fake world of school. They both see a different side of each other, which changes the game for both of them. Now that they've both started to kind of see new depths in each other, their relationship can kind of pivot from friendship to something a bit more. Coming down from the post-midpoint action hero, Vivi and Rue find themselves drawn together, sparks start to fly, they share moments helping out the seniors in her neighborhood, and Vivi starts to love the person she becomes around Rue. She even forgets a cheer practice, causing friction with her mom, who might also learn about Vivi's failing chemistry grade at this point. I like this idea of like, she's starting to change, she's starting to become this person that she actually really likes herself, which before she was like kind of self-deprecating, feeling shame and guilt, like she's trying to be somebody that she's not, whereas now she's sort of taking off the mask and actually making real friends and hanging out with Rue and becoming more of who she's meant to be. Because of that, it starts to create friction with her mom and her old life, and she's even is maybe contemplating quitting the cheer team because it's not her and she doesn't like it. So now that Vivi has been hanging out with Rue more, Blake starts to get too protective. So meanwhile, Blake gets jealous of Vivi spending so much time with Rue, and gossip is starting to spread that Vivi might be dumping Blake for Rue. Rumor mill's starting to churn. Oh no. At first, Blake didn't see Rue as a threat, but now he feels the pressure of his facade beginning to crumble. He needs Vivi to keep up his perfect image at school, so he demands that she cut ties with Rue once she passes chemistry. This ultimatum forces Vivi to confront her true feelings and kind of start to question the life that she's always known and the life that she is starting to desire. This puts her in an interesting position for Act 3 because we're going to lead into a disaster, and Blake is kind of, he's not really a villain of the story. He's struggling as well. And maybe during the second pinch point, maybe he's a little bit stalkerish because he's like spying on Vivi and seeing where is she going with Rue. That fulfills the stalker love interest trope. He's not even so much possessive of her love as he is possessive of just her being part of his image, which I think kind of subverts the expectation. We have a few ends to tie up here. The first one is her chemistry class. So with Rue's help, Vivi aces chemistry Riding high on their success, they decide to throw a retro 1960s themed party for the neighborhood seniors, but there's a catch. The party coincides with Blake's next big football game, where Vivi is expected to cheer. The pressure from her mother intensifies, pushing her to the edge. She starts questioning her future and her place on the cheer team, torn between the person she's always been and who she wants to be. What will she choose? Will she choose Rue and the new friends that she's made, or will she choose like her old fake life of feeling like an imposter but having to people please all the time? Using the disaster of the protagonist versus themselves is a great way to really kind of shake up their life again and make them realize the mistakes they've made and the fact that they need to change in order to achieve true happiness. It's painful, I know, but we're gonna have to make Vivi fall back into her old self in order to have a wake-up call. Forced to choose between her mother or Rue, Vivi buckles under the weight of people-pleasing. She goes to the football game after Blake guilt-trips her into thinking that he'll fail in front of the college scouts if she's not there to cheer him on. Vivi's mother also gaslights her into doing it, saying if she doesn't, she'll let herself down. And at the game, Blake maybe steals a kiss from Vivi, like she doesn't really want it, but he's like, give me a good luck kiss. And then somebody takes a picture of it, posts it online, and Rue sees it, of course, and misinterprets it. So there's a little bit of miscommunication. He thinks it's cheating, but it's not really cheating because she doesn't really like Blake at this point. But across town, Rue is feeling stood up and betrayed already because he's at the party alone with the seniors and Vivi's not there because she chose her old life over him. And he's even more heartbroken about that. And Vivi also feels like she let herself down by people pleasing and going back to her old life and her old persona where she felt like an imposter instead of being true to herself. She can't go to really anybody for advice at this point except her grandmother. Her grandmother is like the only person left. So this pivotal moment is going to force Vivi to confront her deepest fears. With no one else to turn to, she goes to her grandmother who tells her to listen to her heart, be true to what she knows is right. And she also teaches her a lesson about unconditional love and reveals that Rue hasn't even been getting paid to tutor Vivi this whole time. That could be an interesting plot twist. He just did it because he genuinely wanted to help her out. Of course, this makes Vivi feel even worse in a way, but she resolves to make things right with Rue and make it up to him somehow. So Vivi realizes that Rue loves her unconditionally because there was nothing in it for him except her grumpy moods, and that kind of just goes to bring her to her aha moment even more, which is when she realizes that it was all a dream. Her mother's dream. She's gonna have some confrontation with her mother to tell her that and to tell her, you know, this was your dream. This is not the life I want to live. I'm going to live on my own terms. And that kind of gives her the confidence to then go break up with Blake and tell him, you know, you don't really love me. I don't really love you. Let's just be friends, go our separate ways, and tells him to live his life on his own terms and not let his family's expectations shadow him everywhere. And now with this newfound hope and confidence and stability in who she is, Vivi steps into her authentic self. And of course, that leads her to the resolution and end where she has to make things right with Rue. So Vivi makes up with Rue and confesses to him how much she loves him and loves the person she has become because of him. Rue forgives her in a way that shows he loves her unconditionally and admits that she has changed him too and made him realize that he is worthy of love and the kind of relationship that he always thought was out of reach for a guy like him. So Vivi decides to finally quit the cheer team at the end and start to get to know her true self, a loving, warm, compassionate, and genuine Vivi. We have this 180-degree turn, but all of it kind of unfolded in this smooth, natural way that makes sense because of the characters, who they are, what they've been through, and how they've broken down their own stereotypes and their expectations of themselves and others. That's really what this whole story seems to be like an exploration in. Who are you? Who are you becoming? And why are you on this path to becoming this person? Like, is it for your own satisfaction or is it to please somebody else? And are you on this path out of fear or are you on this path out of love? So actually some pretty deep themes and ideas to explore with what seems like on the surface just kind of a cliche high school drama. But that's what I love about character-driven stories, and that's what I love about challenging myself to come up with something out of a list of what seemed like, at the beginning, pretty disastrous ingredients, right? Some of the cliches we had to put our own spin on, like it was all a dream and the AI relationship. But that's the cool thing about brainstorming like this, and you can always bring your own unique creativity into the mix and create something genuinely compelling. Last but not least, let's give our book a title, because we can't call it the worst book of all time. It was all a dream. I kind of want to write it now. So, what did you think of the story that I came up with today out of these ingredients? Is it something that you would read? Also, don't forget to grab that printable I mentioned before, the Trope Twister Brainstorming Guide, and be sure to check out my Patreon, because that's where we go beyond videos and take storytelling to the next level. The Patreon community is not only the best way to support what I'm doing here on YouTube, but it's also the only way to connect one-on-one with me and get access to exclusive monthly live trainings, as well as my private Discord community, Facebook group, and much more. That's patreon.com/Abby Emmons. Smash that like button if you liked this video, and if you want to see me do more writing challenges like this, comment below and let me know. And make sure you subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I post writing videos every Wednesday, and I would love to have you here in the community. Until next week, my friend, rock on. Shh.